Leftist TV host Marc Lamont Hill asked anti-critical race theory activist Chris Rufo what he likes about being white. Take a listen.
And if I were to say to you right now, Christopher, what do you like about being white? What would you say?
I don't know. Again, it's such an amorphous term. It's like a census term or a
but can you do me a favor? Indulge me for one. We're running out of time. Indulge me for a minute. I understand you see it as all these things, but you surely recognize that the world sees you as white. You know the world reads you as white. And if you were to ask me some things I like about being black, I could talk about cultural norms. I could talk about tradition. I could talk about the kind of commonalities I feel around the diaspora. If I were to ask you particularly if you're saying whiteness is a thing that is being constructed as negative and shouldn't be, name something positive that you like about being white.
Well, sure. I'll answer with a thing. There's a lot of documents that are floating around public schools that say things like timeliness, showing up on time is a white supremacist value or a white dominant value. Things like rationality, things like the Enlightenment, things like objectivity. And these are very strange things to be ascribed to a racial identity. My view is that these are actually should be ascribed to every individual human being. Every individual human being, regardless of whatever racial category we impose on them.
Christopher, that doesn't answer the question, though. You're telling me you're making straw men about things that are ascribed to whiteness that you think are wrongfully ascribed to whiteness. I'm saying if whiteness isn't a negative thing, and there's something that that whiteness actually shouldn't be constructed as all negative, name something positive that you believe is positive about being white.
Again, I don't buy into the framework that the world can be reduced into these metaphysical categories of whiteness and blackness. I think that's wrong. I think we should look at people as individuals. I think we should celebrate different people's accomplishments. And again, I think the idea you mentioned Ignatieff says the goal is to, quote, abolish the white race. In any other context, this would be interpreted as a near genocidal slur. I don't buy into it. The reason I'm not going to answer your question is I reject that categorization. I think of myself as an individual human being with my own capabilities. And I would hope that we could both judge each other as individuals and come to common values on that basis.
Okay, so he obviously knocked that answer out of the park. He was caught off guard by it because it's a trick question. He knocked it out of the park, so kudos to him on that. What he also should have said, well, I like being white because that's how God made him. That's how God made me, in God's image. Likewise, Marc Lamont Hill should like being black because that is how God made him, in God's image. There's no racial superiority or inferiority in God's image. But what we heard, the question from Marc Lamont Hill, this is critical race theory. It's challenged by Rufo. Marc Lamont Hill was essentially defending it. And that's the problem with critical race theory. We hear this term a lot, critical race theory. We hear about the battleground in public schools over critical race theory. We hear leftists defending it, just calling it a perspective. But this is the problem with critical race theory. It demonizes white people because critical race theory views everything through this prism of race instead of viewing people like individuals.